What's up, guys? Welcome back to our walkthrough of classic poetry. Today I want to go over what is arguably the most famous poem of all time, and that is, any guesses? Well, you've already seen the title, so you know what I'm going to say. It's The Road Not Taken by Robert Frost. Now, there's a lot of poems that some people know some of the lines to, like, "Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely and more temperate," or "How do I love thee? Let me count the ways." But there's no poem whose lines have touched us more than the closing lines of The Road Not Taken. "Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference." But what's he talking about here? What is the road less traveled by? Is it just wanting to be different and stand apart from the crowd? A kid sees that all of his friends are taking business degrees, so he says to himself, "I know, I'll become a writer because writers are mysterious." Is that what Robert Frost is talking about? Just wanting to be different from everyone else, wanting to stand apart from the crowd? Well, I think it's something more. Henry David Thoreau, in his book Walden, said something that's always touched me. He said, "If one advances confidently in the direction of their dreams and endeavors to live the life they have imagined, they will meet with a success greater than expected in common hours." And I think that's what Robert Frost is talking about. The road less traveled is going in the direction of one's dreams. But what's Thoreau talking about when he says you'll meet with a success greater than expected in common hours? I mean, what's a common hour? Well, we have a lot of them. When you wake up in the morning and you just want to have breakfast, you just want to go to work, you don't see what all the fuss is about with, wanting to live your life to the full. Just let me live my life. I don't care right now. Well, that's a common hour, and we have a lot of them. But then comes the uncommon hour, when you see that it's going to be a beautiful sunset, and you take your car up to a hillside and you look out over the city and you see the beautiful colors, and you're struck again by the beauty and brevity of life. You realize, man, my life is short, and if I can't find out how to live my life to the full, if I can't find out how to live with passion, then all the other things that I do really won't matter anyway, right? And so what Thoreau is saying is, if you endeavor to live the life you have imagined during your uncommon hours, during those times where you're struck by the beauty and brevity of life, then you will meet with a success greater than you expected during all your common hours. And that really is the same thing that Robert Frost is saying. That's the road less traveled, is endeavoring to live the life you have imagined during your uncommon hours. So are you ready to actually read the poem now? Enough of the prefacing. Actually, just kidding. There's one more thing I have to say. So, Robert Frost was a huge proponent of walking. He wrote most of his great poems while just out on long walks, not really knowing what he was going to encounter. And this is none more true than in The Road Not Taken. He basically just is out on a walk and comes to a fork in the road, and he's standing there for a long time because he doesn't know which way he wants to go down. So, as always, the poem is written down below so you can follow along as I read aloud. "Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both, and be one traveler, long I stood." So he's just saying, I wish I could travel down both paths, but I'm just one traveler, so I can't. So I have to make a decision. Do I go down this path, or do I go down that path? So he starts examining the two to try and figure out, which is the better path to travel down. "I looked down one as far as I could, to where it bent in the undergrowth, then took the other as just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim, because it was grassy and wanted wear. Though as for that, the passing there had worn them really about the same." So he comes to the conclusion that there's really nothing noteworthy about either path, or at least nothing more noteworthy about one path over the other. So he's just standing there trying to decide, which path am I going to go down? And this is kind of, to me, where the poem becomes really profound. I mean, I love the closing lines just like everyone else, but this third stanza is really, to me, what speaks the most. It says, "Both that morning equally lay in leaves, no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first for another day. Yet, knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back." He says finally to himself, well, what's the big deal? I'll just travel the first path another day, and I'll take the second path today. So I'll actually travel down both paths. And yet something strikes him when he says that. And he realizes, he says, yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. And to me, he's really beautifully identifying and illustrating the trap that we often fall into. You know, we have the someday mentality, right? Well, I need to do what I have to do right now. I have to pay my bills. You know, I just don't have a lot of time right now. I don't have a lot of money. So I'll try to do what I'm passionate about later, you know. I'll keep that for another day, you know, when my circumstance is better, when my situation is better. And something inside us, you know, always has an alarm that goes off that says, you know, way leads on to way. And if I'm not at least going in the direction of my dreams right now, I don't have to be beelining it straight toward my dreams, but if I'm not at least going in the direction of my dreams, like Thoreau said, then way leads on to way. And I might never come back to this fork in the road right now where I'm trying to decide, do I be a realist or do I be an idealist? Do I pay my bills or do I go after my dreams? And to me, that's really the biggest struggle of life, right? Am I going to at least go in the direction of my dreams, or am I just going to be a realist and pay all my bills? And to me, Robert Frost just so beautifully illustrates that struggle, because he starts off saying the same thing we all do, like, it's no big deal, I'll keep the first for another day, right? Yet, knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. And that to me is the most profound part of the poem that often gets overlooked, because the fourth stanza is just so beautiful. And he finishes by saying, I shall be telling this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence. Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. And it's just such a beautiful poem because, you know, the circumstances are not really exceptional. He's just on a walk and he comes to a fork in the road. And yet he says at the end, I shall be telling this with a sigh somewhere ages and ages hence. Like at the end of my life, I'm going to be telling people about this one time that I went for a walk and stood in front of a fork in the road for a really long time deciding which way to go. And it's because it's not the event itself, it's the realization that he comes to when he sees the fork in the road. It makes him realize something about himself that he probably hadn't realized until then. He realized, I am the type of person that is actually going in the direction of my dreams. There's so many people around me that haven't taken the time to identify what they're passionate about and to actually do the difficult in order to achieve what they've always wanted to achieve. And when he stood in front of that fork in the road, I think it caused the realization in his heart of, wow, you know, I am on the road less traveled by. And yes, it has made all the difference. So it's not just the event itself of going on a walk and standing in front of a path, you know, and a fork in the road. It's the realization of what kind of person he was and the choices that he made that led to him becoming the type of person he was. So this is, like I said, arguably the most famous poem of all time. It's absolutely beautiful. I hope you liked it, and I'm sorry we didn't read it straight through like usual, so I encourage you to go back and read through it again, you know, on your own a couple more times, because it's just really a spectacular poem. And I look forward to seeing you on the next walkthrough.